Go.
Okay, so welcome everyone, and we are at the Namaste Center. Today is May 20th, 2012, and I am so grateful to be able to share not only with you all here today, our wonderful guest, but also all of you that may be watching this online. And as I was mentioning earlier, I've been blessed to receive and work with many of the top healers, cutting-edge teachers on the planet today, and I'm truly grateful for that. And I'm extremely grateful that Spirit actually introduced me to someone who has taken all of these wonderful tools and all of these wonderful healing methods and brought them into such a simple, easy way. So I'd like to welcome and introduce everyone here to Dr. Bradley Nelson, so please come up and so have a seat, and we will, first of all, just give a little background here. I was introduced to your work several months ago, maybe a year ago even, by a good friend, Sammy Lipscomb, who is a great advocate for your work. And of course, I had the pleasure of not only catching her enthusiasm about it, but also experiencing it. And it really is remarkable what you've been able to accomplish and share with the world. And one thing that I appreciate and value so much even more is that your willingness to share it and give it away. You are kind enough to offer a free download of your book, The Emotion Code, and also the MP3 version of it as well. So no one can say that they can't get it. It's out there for everybody, and I think that really just shows the authenticity and the sincerity of your work, not only the power of it. So thank you. So I'm going to let you just tell us a little bit, what is the Emotion Code and how did that actually come to be?
Well, first of all, let me explain to you what happened and how I got onto this path. When I was about 13 years old, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, and there was no treatment available for me medically. And I would get pains in the back like a knife, and it would put me on the ground. And my parents didn't know what to do, so they decided they would try an alternative. And they took me to get what I thought was chiropractic care. It turned out, years later I realized they were actually a couple of old-time osteopathic doctors, but they were doing manipulation, and they told me that I had a bone out of alignment in my back. It was putting pressure on these nerves that went to my kidneys, and so it weakened my kidneys and created this right setting for disease. So I decided that that's what I wanted to do with my life at that point. I wanted to be a chiropractor. And so as years went on, I got kind of sidetracked from that and got into computer programming. And I was about 6 months away from going into the MBA program at Brigham Young University. And my wife and I went home to Montana. And we were sitting with my mother and father, and my father all of a sudden says, out of the blue, "Are you sure you don't want to go to chiropractic school because it seems like a great career?" And I said, "No, I'm going this other direction." And he said, "Well, why don't you think about it one more time?" So I thought, well, okay. I did. And so Jean and I made up a pro and con list, and it was a little longer on the chiropractic side, but this other side was fun too because I was really into computers and programming and all that. So that night I got on my knees and I prayed. And I asked God if He would help me to know, if He had any input on this, help me to know what to do. So that night I went to sleep, and a few hours later I woke up. And my mind was full of happy, warm, positive thoughts about going the healing route. And I thought, well, yeah, but this other direction too. So an hour or so later, I woke up again, had the same thoughts in my mind, and I thought, well, yeah, but, you know. And so 3 times that night that happened to me. So then the next night, found me on my knees again, praying and asking God. And I'm sure He was probably just kind of going, So anyway, that night, I had the same experience, but that night was different. Because each time, I was awakened 3 times that night as well, but each time that I was awakened, that feeling was geometrically more powerful than the time before. Until the 3rd time that night I woke up, I was filled with overwhelming thoughts of service to mankind and humanity, and I mean, it was just overwhelming. And right at that moment, I heard a voice that spoke to me as clearly as anything I've ever heard in my life, and it said, "This is a sacred calling."
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was the answer, see? And so I've thought about that for many years. What does it mean? Why is healing a sacred calling? And I think it's a sacred calling anytime we are trying to help someone to function better or get out of pain or feel better so that they can achieve the things they're supposed to achieve in this life and achieve their destiny. I believe each of us has a purpose to fulfill here in this world. We're not here by happenstance, by any stretch of the imagination, see? And so that's kind of how that started. Well, when I went to chiropractic school, I was very open to new things. And I had the feeling that maybe the best ways to do things hadn't maybe been figured out yet or hadn't been revealed yet. So when I got out of school, I got in the habit of praying and asking for help, because when I got out, I figured, well, you got me into this, so you're going to have to help me now, because I need help. And so I got in this habit of just asking a silent prayer of help every time I went to work on somebody. And as time went on, there was more and more information that filtered down. And there were times, especially during the last 10 or so years that I was in practice, where if someone came in with something that I didn't understand or that I hadn't ever seen before, there were times when I would just utter that silent prayer and the information would just flood into my mind about what was going on and what needed to be done. It was an amazing thing. And so during those last years I was in practice, I was working also with people who were suffering from supposedly incurable conditions, people that couldn't get any help anywhere else, people that had been told that there was no cure for them, see. And when you take somebody like that who is maybe sleeping 22 hours a day because they've got chronic fatigue syndrome so severe, or people who are in so much pain with fibromyalgia, or who are so sick with these other conditions that are considered incurable, that they can't really function, they can't have a life, they are just living from day to day or moment to moment sometimes because they're so sick. Many of those people were praying to die because their life was so hopeless. And when you take someone like that and you figure out what their body really needs, and you figure out what their body really wants, and you answer those needs, and that person gets well, that's a sacred thing. Because then they can do the things that they are meant to do here in this world, see, and they can do the things that they're supposed to do and fulfill their own destiny. And that's why this is such a powerful work, and why in this work, an integral part of this work that is so important is prayer, see. Because I believe that the highest purpose of the healer is to act as the go-between between that higher power.
Yes, that's right.
So if you're a healer and you're trying to heal on your own power, it's like trying to sit on a two-legged stool. If you've got all three legs of that stool, you're nice and very stable and sturdy, and you can do it. But a two-legged stool isn't going to stand up for you.
That's right.
That's how I think of it,
Absolutely.
being from Montana.
What does that have to do with it?
And one
They
thing...
call those milking stools.
Oh,
That's right. Well, on Friday night, when you just introduced yourself, you said you really can't take any credit for this. It was really
No.
came through you from Spirit or from God. And you just continue to be that open vessel, which is such a great example of really the humbleness and knowing that all we have, it's really potential and possible for all of us, which you showed us. We just have to be willing to tap in.
Well, the interesting thing, I think, is that I think that with God, things are simple, right? And it's like Einstein said, I think he said that the things should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. Right? And the ultimate sophistication is simplicity.
Yes.
And so I was always driven to try to just understand what was the simplest way that things could possibly be done. And it helped that I had a room full of people who had been told there was no cure for them, and I had 10 minutes per person to work on that. That was how my practice ran. And yet I was able to do that and help those people in that time frame, because the reality is, I think that when ego gets involved, things become naturally more complex.
yeah.
Because the ego likes to say, well, look at me, I'm so smart, you've got to be amazingly intelligent to do what I do. God doesn't work that way. God says, here's the simplicity of this, anyone can do this, and that's the message of this work, is that there is so much that we can do for ourselves that it's kind of mind-boggling, really. Most of the problems that we have most of the pain that we have, most of the physical problems, most of the diseases, most of the emotional problems, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, phobias, things like that, neck pain, back pain, fibromyalgia, all of those things have as their primary underlying cause, in most cases, emotional baggage. What is emotional baggage? Well, if you look at your hand, that hand looks pretty solid. And you can pick that hand out of a lineup because you've seen it a million times or more. But if you magnify that hand a few hundred times, you'd be looking at the cells in the hand. You wouldn't be able to recognize it anymore. And if you continue to zoom in on that hand at about 850,000 power magnification, you'd be looking at the molecules that make up the hand. And you might be looking at a strand of DNA, the double helix of DNA, for example. If you zoom in on that double helix to about 1,000,000 power magnification, you'd be looking face to face with a single individual atom. And if you could look inside that atom, the building block of us and the building block of everything, you see there's really nothing in there. Vast amounts of empty space. And then these little infinitesimally tiny particles zipping around. They're really energies at the speed of light. And that's really what we are, is we're beings of pure energy, see? Well, we can measure thoughts electronically, and we can measure emotions as well. And different emotions have different frequencies. So if you are feeling an emotion, what you're really feeling is an energy, aren't you? Because is there anything that's not energy?
No.
It's all energy, see? So if you're feeling an emotion of anger, that's a different frequency or a different vibrational level than an emotion of guilt or an emotion of frustration. They're all different. Now sometimes what I found is that when we're feeling that intense emotion, sometimes it's too powerful. That vibration is too much for our body to process. And the energy of that emotion can get stuck in the body. And a trapped emotion is what we call that. And it's typically a ball of energy from about the size of an orange to the size of a cantaloupe. And these can literally lodge anywhere in the body. And wherever they lodge in the body, and by the way, we all have them, wherever they lodge, they will do two things. They will distort the normal energy field of the body. And that's all the body is, see? And that's the first thing that they do. And let me tell you a little bit about that. One of the first people that I saw that, where this was really brought home to me was a woman who I'd seen before. And one day she came in and she thought she was having a heart attack. She had crushing chest pain, difficulty breathing. Her left arm was completely numb. The left side of her face was numb. And I told my staff we might need to call an ambulance because it looked like she's having a heart attack. So I put them on alert. I had her lay down. I tested her vital signs. They seemed okay. So I started asking questions. Now this work can only be done by interrogating the subconscious mind. Because you see, the conscious mind doesn't know why you're sick. It doesn't know if you have trapped emotions. But your subconscious mind is 90% or more of your intelligence. It's been alive forever, I believe. And it knows and has tracked every moment of your life, everything you've ever done, every face you've ever seen in a crowd, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled. Okay? The whole history of your health or disease is all logged in that perfect holographic computer of the subconscious mind. And so that's what I was doing with her. And we tap into that by using muscle testing, and we teach a bunch of different methods of doing it that are real simple. So I was tapping into that, asking her questions, asking questions of her subconscious mind. And what we got was that there was a trapped emotion of sadness or grief. And the body will tell you when that occurred. And so I'm testing her and asking when that occurred, and it went back 3 years, and that's what the body said. It had occurred 3 years before. And at that point, she burst into tears. And she said, I can't believe that's affecting me. I thought I dealt with all that. I thought I put that behind me. And I said, well, what happened to you? 3 years before, she said, her husband had an affair. And it destroyed her life for a while. And it destroyed her marriage, definitely. In fact, she went to therapy for a year, dealt with it mentally, and put it behind her. And had even recently gotten remarried. So as far as she was concerned, it was ancient history. But as far as her body was concerned, it had just happened. See? And so that emotional energy was right there in that heart. And I passed a magnet down her back, which just takes a few seconds to release the energy of the emotion. Okay? And the feeling came back into her arm this fast, whoosh, just like that, and into her face. The chest pain was gone, difficulty breathing was gone. It was all gone, pretty much instantly. And she left the office about 10 minutes later feeling totally fine. And after she left, I went in and sat down. And I thought about what I had just seen. And I thought, how in the world could that have happened? How could an emotion be that powerful that it could actually simulate a heart attack? Well, now we know. There's been a lot of research lately. This was 22 or 3 years ago, maybe longer. But now we know that it's in the headlines recently that yes, you can die of a broken heart. Can't you? We know that now. And in fact, what they say now is that don't be real surprised if you think you're having a heart attack and you've got all the symptoms, and you should definitely go to the ER, but don't be real surprised if they come back and tell you, well, there's really nothing wrong with your heart. In that case, what's happening is you're suffering from trapped emotions, just like this woman was, you see. Now let me tell you something. That woman, that was over 20 years ago. She's still completely fine. She's never had any kind of reoccurrence. But how many people actually do end up dying of a broken heart?
Yeah.
That's what would have killed her, and she might have already been dead if we hadn't done that, see. So how important is this work? Well, trapped emotions, you see, are the single biggest underlying cause of our pain. And 90% of our pain is caused by trapped emotions. It is the elephant in the living room in the world that we live in. We are now finding out for the first time, you see, what emotions do to us and what emotions are and how they affect us. And it's absolutely just astonishing. And so during these years that I was learning about this, I saw firsthand many, many, many circumstances where people were suffering from pain, for example, and we were able to get them out of pain instantly in many cases. And it got to a point where I realized I had to start teaching this to other people. So it was about 15 or so years ago I started teaching seminars on this to people. But I was still working in my practice 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and then flying off doing seminars. And after about 10 or so years of that, I got a message from up above that said, okay, you've got to quit doing this. You've got to write a book about this, because this isn't just for you, you silly person. This needs to go to everybody, right? And so I did. I left practice in 2004, and the Emotion Code book was published in 2007. And we have it in a number of different languages now. And I believe that my purpose in this world is to bring this message to the world and to teach people how they can help themselves and how they can release their own emotional baggage. And you would be so amazed, because we get emails now every day from people in different parts of the world who are changing their lives, who are releasing their emotional baggage. And you see, what happens to us is we, generally speaking, I think, we come into this world pretty clean from emotional garbage, although we sometimes inherit emotional stuff from our ancestors, and that can definitely affect us, but we can get rid of that too. But what happens to us is we start out life, and then we go through traumatic things, and we go through breakups when we're kids or when we're older. We go through divorce. Sometimes we're abused, sometimes in different ways, and we end up having a lot of emotional baggage. And then we end up wondering as we get older, is my life really working out how it was supposed to? Am I really who God or the universe intended for me to become? That's a question that we ask ourselves. Well, when we're dealing with all this emotional baggage and we're dragging all of this luggage around with us all of our lives, we're very much hampered from becoming who we're supposed to be. And when we release this emotional baggage, we come back to being that pure spirit, that pure energy that God intended us to become. And then we become instruments in the hands of that higher power, you see, so that His love shines forth into the world through us. And we're able to manifest that perfect creation that is inside every single heart, you see. I believe that totally. Each of us has a perfect creation that we can manifest into this world. The problem is, most of us, well, I think we all have emotional baggage, but 93% of us have something that we call a heart wall.
Right.
So
That was where I was going next, to tell us about the heart wall.
that's where you're going.
He's a mind reader, too.
Well, well, what happened was in 1998, my wife had a dream. And in this dream, there were 3 symbols. And these 3 symbols, she knew when she woke up, were symbols of things that had to be done to help her to function better and feel better and achieve what she was capable of achieving. So she asked me if I would help her. So right then, I figured out through testing what these first 2 symbols meant. There were some emotional things, as I recall, that we hadn't dealt with yet. And then when I turned my attention to the 3rd symbol from her dream, I had an amazing thing happen to me, unlike anything I've ever had happen in my whole entire life, that I can only describe to you as a waking vision, where suddenly I saw before me this beautiful hardwood floor, and it looked like it had 100 coats of polish. It was just absolutely brilliant looking, just the most beautiful floor, in fact, I've ever seen in my whole life. It was that real and that clear to me. And this didn't come from my imagination, this came from up above to me. And at the same time that I'm seeing this, I have this understanding in my mind that my wife's heart is underneath this floor. And I had absolutely, as you might imagine, no idea what this meant. No idea at all. And I told my wife what I was seeing and understanding, and of course, she knew exactly what, no, she didn't either. She had no idea either. But it didn't take us long. Prayed and asked for help to understand this. And this thing persisted. This vision of this floor went on for several minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. And we prayed and asked for help and started doing some testing. And we figured out that when she was about 2 years old, her subconscious mind started putting up a wall around her heart. Now, the human heart is an interesting thing. You know, in the West, we learn that the heart is just a pump, and it pumps 4 million times, I think, a year, 100,000 times a day. I might have gotten those a little bit off, but we don't live without it, right? And what happens to us is if we are feeling those intense feelings of hurt, where we feel like our heart is going to break, or we feel that emotion that we call heartache, and we've all probably felt that, most of us, at one point or another. Your spirit within you does not like that. That's like an assault on the deepest part of who you are. The ancients believed that the heart is the seat of the soul, and the seat of our creativity, and the source of our love, and the core of us. And when you feel that kind of a feeling, when you're really grieving or you're really hurt, what happens is, if that happens more than a couple of times, your subconscious will try to put up a wall around that heart to protect that heart from being totally broken, you see, because that's like an assault on the deepest part of who you are. Well, by the time she was 2 years old, she already had this wall that was being put up because she was in a kind of a dysfunctional home, like a lot of people end up. And so the price that she paid for having that wall was, she always felt like she was on the outside looking in with whatever group she was involved with, even friends she'd known forever. She always felt like she didn't quite belong. It was easy for her to feel negative emotions, hard for her to feel positive emotions. And that was the price she was paying. Easy to be depressed, hard to feel joyful. Okay? And so we started releasing these emotions, because what happens is when the subconscious mind puts up a wall around the heart, it's literally made from layers of energy. And those energies are actually the trapped emotions that you've picked up. Most of them from your own lifetime, some of them from before. And so we started releasing these. And when that last emotion was released, suddenly she had the feeling that she was on the inside, looking out suddenly. And so in the very, very beginning of this, in the first few minutes of this, I thought, well, this is another odd thing my wife has that is going to teach me, because she's had different afflictions, so that I could learn. That's how sometimes things work out, unfortunately for her. Right? But I thought, well, she's maybe the only person on the planet that has this. But 93% of people have this heart wall going on. And it is, I think, the most important thing that you can do in your life. If you live the rest of your life and you die with a heart wall, okay, I don't think you're going to be able to manifest in this world what you need to manifest. I think that you will be handicapped as far as finding a soulmate. I mean, that's what we see. We have about 500 practitioners now worldwide, and I got an email recently from one who told me that in January, for example, she got 3 new clients who were all women, who were all single, not in a relationship. All 3 of them had heart walls. She was able to take down those heart walls on all 3 of those women, which usually takes 2 or 3 sessions, or maybe 4. And by Valentine's Day, all 3 of them were in love. And all 3 of them, hopefully, will end up staying in love, etc. But that's how powerful this is. You see, they've done studies where they have found that the heart itself, we're believing now the heart is a second brain. And when people started getting heart transplants back in the 1960s, they would come back and they would say strange things. Like, suddenly, Doc, my taste in music has changed. I used to like rock and roll. Now it's just classical, and I listen to these certain passages. And here they are. I listen to these over and over. Can you explain this? Well, the heart that you got was from a concert violinist.
Wow.
A neighbor of ours, big guy, got a heart from a woman. And now, as soon as he got out of the hospital, he found that his car would kind of automatically pull him to Starbucks. No kidding. And he'd find himself at the counter. For some reason, he would order a hazelnut latte. No kidding. And and it's so funny because he's a real macho sort of a guy, but when he drives by an ice cream shop, he says to his wife, "Oh, honey, it's ice cream. We have to stop." They can't drive down the street without stopping. So that's from her heart, not his. See?
Wow, that's really
Yeah, there's so many amazing stories. There was the most amazing story about the heart, I think, is from a 7-year-old girl who received a heart transplant from another young girl who had been murdered. And when this girl got out of the hospital, she started having nightmares that she was being killed. And these nightmares were so consistent. And the face of the man who was killing her was so consistent. The murder weapon too, so consistent. Her parents took her to the police, who were able to make composite drawings from her descriptions that helped lead to the arrest and conviction of the murderer of the donor.
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing.
If your hair isn't standing up yet,
Yeah, well, it is fascinating, and the work is so quick and easy. And this weekend at the seminar, everyone got one of these. And explain to us what this is.
well, this is a chart of emotions, okay? And this chart has 60 emotions on it, and what we have found is that this chart suffices in all cases to find trapped emotions and release them. And to show you how fast this is, and how easy this is, and how this works for everybody, maybe what we could do is take a volunteer.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, so here's what I like to look for generally speaking. For demonstration purposes, now the emotion code works for all kinds of things. I've seen people get well from phobias, anxiety, panic attacks, all kinds of things. Okay, depression too. And all kinds of physical problems as well. In fact, during all these years now that I've been doing this, I have not seen a single complaint that did not have a trapped emotion involved. And oftentimes the trapped emotion is the biggest reason. So what I'd like to do is, pain is something that's pretty easy to demonstrate. So what I'd like to do is, if you're in pain right now, raise your hand. Okay, you are, and you are, and you, okay, and you. Okay, we've got, and okay, and you. So no shortage of people in pain. On a 0 to 10 scale, 0 being no pain at all, and 10 being call 911, if you're at least a 5 or 6 on that scale, so that your pain is really quite significant, I want you to come up. Okay, let's have you come up first. And if we get close on time, just let me know.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
I can do this for a long time,
Yes,
as you know.
I know. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Okay, let's take a look. And what's your name?
Elena,
Elena. Okay, and what's hurting?
my whole body, I have chronic myofascial pain,
Okay.
kind of like a fibromyalgia.
Okay. Is there any particular area right now that's bothering you more than anywhere else?
My back's always.
Your back?
a
Low
lot of
back?
pain. My whole back.
Whole back?
Neck to, yeah.
Neck to low back. Okay.
Pretty much.
So on a 0 to 10 scale, if we pick one area like the low back here, what would you say? Give that a number.
I'd say my low back today is maybe about a 4, my shoulders maybe 5.
Maybe a 5 up in this area. Okay. So we'll take this area up in here, all right? And let's just see what we can find out. Okay. So go ahead and say, my name is
My name is Elena.
Elena. Okay, and just resist me now for a second. I'm going to press down on her arm. Now, the subconscious mind is a computer system. It's a binary system, which means that we can ask any question we want and get any kind of answer as long as the answer is yes or no. Kind of like Henry Ford said, right? You can have any color as long as it's black. so just resist now. Okay, so say my name is Elena.
My name is Elena.
Okay, now if I press down on her arm, she's nice and strong and she can resist that downward pressure because that's a congruent or true statement. But watch what happens if she says something that's not congruent, like my name is Bob.
My name is Bob.
She says her name is Bob, and if I press down on her arm now, do you see what's happening? She can't hold her arm up because that's incongruent. And that's her subconscious mind answering us. You see, that's how this works. So we've already tapped into her subconscious a little bit. We've established that we can communicate with her subconscious mind. So let's ask this question. Do you have a trapped emotion that we can release now that is contributing to this pain in between your shoulder blades? We'll give that a second, and then the answer comes up, and what is the answer?
Yes.
The answer is yes. You see how this works? Very simple. Okay, so at this point, her subconscious mind already knows what this trapped emotion is. It knows who was involved, it knows when it was created. Who knows? It could be at any point in her life, but at some point, there was an emotion that got stuck in her body. I happen to have a list here of all the emotions. And this is divided into 2 columns and 6 rows. Now watch how quickly we can figure this out. Okay? Now she doesn't have to, she does not have to see this list. Okay? It doesn't matter if she's ever seen this list before. And you know why? This list is out there in universal intelligence, you see. So her subconscious mind already knows what's on the list, and that might sound amazing to some of you, but welcome to the 21st century. Just resist me now a little bit. Okay, this emotion, is it in column A in our chart here? And that's pretty strong. Let's go to column B and we'll ask, is it in column B in our chart? And what's that answer?
No.
Definitely no. So we just eliminated half the list. You see that? What we're trying to do is determine what her subconscious mind already knows. And that is how we do it, through this process of elimination. We just got rid of 30. Now this process is a lot faster than I'm doing now because I'm explaining everything. See? But here we go. Let's take a look. We know it's in column A. We're going to divide column A into 2 parts by asking if this emotion is in odd rows or even rows. We've got 6 rows, 3 odds, 3 evens. Is this trapped emotion in one of the odd rows in column A? What do we get?
No.
Nope. So we know we've just eliminated 15 emotions. We've got 15 left. Here we go. So is this emotion in row 2 then in column A? And that one's weak. Let's go to row 4 in column A then. Okay. That leaves row 6 in column A. So is that where it is? Yep, it's in row 6, column A. So we've just narrowed it down to 5 emotions. Now I have no idea what this emotion is, and she doesn't either. She might think she does. So is this emotion humiliation? Is that what this is? Humiliation? No. Okay, so just keep resisting there. Is it jealousy? Is that what it is? No. Is it longing, where you miss somebody? No. Is the emotion lust? No. Is that what it is? No.
Not lust.
Lust? Well, that's an emotion, but you passed on that one. Is it overwhelm? Is that what it is? What do we get on that one?
Yes.
Let's try that again. Is it overwhelmed? Is that what it is? Yep, overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed at some point. Does that ring any kind of bell? Not really. Does that bother me? No. Not in the least. Why? Because her subconscious mind doesn't even remember what she had for breakfast yesterday. Or rather, her conscious mind. Her subconscious mind remembers everything. Thanks. So here we go. So, overwhelmed. Let's ask, do we need to know more about this emotion? What's your body say? It says no. Now, what that means is, you see, sometimes the subconscious mind wants more information brought to the surface or brought to conscious awareness about an emotion. So we ask that question because sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper and find out when it occurred and so on. In this case, her body says, no, I know what that's about. Don't worry about it. Just get rid of it. So here we go. You ready? We'll go ahead and we'll release this thing. Now, this is the hardest part of this because we have to pass a magnet down her back 3 times. There's 2. There's the 3rd one. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is just kind of roll your arms around a little bit and let's see how that feels in there now.
No, it's still tight, but
Still tight? Pain-wise, where are we at in there?
maybe a little less.
Maybe a little less? Let's take a look here. Hold on. Just resist. Let's ask, did we release that emotion of overwhelm? Yes, we did. Now, so it's a little better on a 0 to, you were about a 5 there, right? Where would you say it's at now? 3 to 4.
It's
Okay.
not totally gone.
So we've made a little bit of a difference there. Do you think maybe there might be another emotion?
Yes.
Yeah, that's possible. So let's find out. Let's ask, is there a trapped emotion we can release now that is contributing to this pain that you're having back in that area of the back? And what's your body say?
Yes.
Yeah, it says, thank you for asking. Funny you should ask. All right. Okay, same process. Is this emotion in column A in our chart? Yes, it is. So we've just eliminated half the chart. Let's ask if it's in one of the odd rows in column A. Yes. Is it in row 1 in column A? No. Is it in row 3 in column A? Mm-mm. So we're back to row 6 in column A. Is that
No,
where it is?
5.
5.
Oh, 5, okay. Is it in row 5 in column A? Okay, that one's strong. So here we go. You ready? Is it blaming? Is that what it is? No. Is it dread? No. Is it fear? No. Is it horror? No. Is it peeved? No, it isn't any of those. Now, those of you who've been to the seminar know
Yes.
that when the body takes you to a certain column and a certain row, and then all the answers are negative, or you can't figure out which one it is, it's almost always what?
Inherited.
It's almost always inherited. Here's what happens, okay? At the moment of conception, okay, sometimes we get energy from mom or dad, okay, in the form of an emotion. And sometimes they got it the moment they were conceived from their mom and dad, and sometimes these go back several generations, you never know. But let's figure out what this is, okay? Let's ask, is this an inherited emotion? Yes, it is, very strong. So is it inherited blaming? Okay, just resist that. Is it inherited blaming? No. Is it inherited dread? No. Is it inherited fear? And that was strong. Inherited fear. Okay, so let's see where this came from. I might need somebody to take notes if it goes back
I got
very
it.
far. You got that?
Ruth got it.
Here we go. This is inherited fear. Did you get this from your mother at the moment of conception? Yes, she did. And I got lucky there. Could have been her dad. It came from your mom. Now, did your mom get this from somebody earlier? Yes, she did. So did she get it from her mother? Yes, she did. And did she get it, your grandmother, did she get it from somebody earlier? Yes, she did. Did she get it from her mother? Okay. So this looks like it's staying in the mother's line, and so we might be able to just shortcut this and ask, does this go back further? Yes. Does it stay in the mother's line? Yes, it does. And how many generations does this go back from you? Does it go back 5 generations? Does it go back 6? Does it go back 10? It goes back 10. Does it go back 15 generations? No. Does it go back 14 generations on the mother's side? No. Does it go back 13? No. Does it go back 12 generations? It goes back 12 generations.
Wow.
Wow.
12 generations on the mother's side. Just wait. It gets better. Because we can figure this out, for one thing. 12 generations times 22 years for a generation equals about 264 years. Minus 2012 comes out to about 1748.
Wow.
So sometime around there, give or take, roughly. Now, the other thing that's really interesting about this, okay, which is the really profound thing about this, is that when we do this kind of thing, okay, when we find these inherited emotions, when we clear an emotion like this, okay, we clear that energy, it not only clears you in this case, it also clears